Very awesome and beautiful elements in the reading today, the gospel, and I want to draw out a few of them. And one, message that I get through them is this. The Father did not allow anything to deter His decision. He did not allow anything to deter Him from carrying through the decision that He made. And that was a new insight for me. Sometimes, most often, this parable is called the parable of the prodigal son. But it's also been called the parable of the lost son. But even at times, the parable of the loving father. Imagine if that's what you understood it to be, the parable of the loving father. Well, let's look into the text a little bit. When the son approaches the father, he says, "Father, give to me my share of the estate." Now, in Greek, the word is bion. Bion. Give me my share, bion, of the estate. Bion is the root word for biology. And so, it's translated estate. The word is estate. Give me my share of the estate. But we could see in here that he's asking for everything that would give him life, in a sense. All of that which he has with the Father, which he says and he thinks belongs to him. Okay? I had a baptism a week ago, and after the baptism we had a little party, and the godparents' son, they have one child who's 8 years old, was there. And he's a sharp little guy, kind of little whiz. And he has a practice mass set, so he wants to be a priest. He's only 8 years old. And he comes over to me in this very sophisticated manner, and he starts talking out loud about the prodigal son, and he's kind of elucidating the text for him. And he says, "You know, when the son asked for his estate, he was really saying he wanted his father dead." And I went, "What? What are you talking about? This is an 8-year-old." And he says, "Yeah." He says, because you get the inheritance when your parents die." And I said, "Wow." I said, "Dude, are you going to be the Pope someday? Or what's going on here?" Well, I don't know if we should interpret it quite in that stark manner, but I do think there's something there. The son does not know his father. He does not know the character, the full character, the love, the beneficence, the compassion of his father. Neither does the older son know the father. So the young son, he takes his half and he goes out to some far distant country. And it says he squanders it on a life of dissipation. And where does he end up? Now, he is a Jew. Okay? Do you remember, is there anything that is impure that you wouldn't touch as a Jew? You wouldn't touch pigs, would you? Pigs are unclean, if you will. And where does he end up? He ends up in a pig pen, kind of like your room. Just kidding. He ends up serving pigs, and he can't even eat their food. He ends up in the lowest place he could find himself. Now, what about the father? The father sees him from a far distance. The father is watching. The father is hoping. And the Greek says he throws himself on the neck of the son. That's what it literally says. Throws himself on the neck. He is undeterred. What does that mean? Well, the younger son says, "I am no longer worthy to be called your son." The father says, "I'm throwing a party." "Why throw a party? I'm not worthy. I'm not worthy of the party. Just call me a slave. Just treat me like your hired workers." The father says, "I'm not deterred. Though you think so lowly of yourself now, and you have so much shame, I am not deterred." Then the older son comes. "Father, I was here all the time obeying you. You didn't even give me a goat. I'm not coming into the party." Now, if the father was a people pleaser, he could have said, "Well, you're right. That was a big mistake. I should stop the party. That guy doesn't deserve it. My other son, you deserve it." But he says, "No, I'm undeterred. I'm undeterred. We're going to have this party. Now, I like one of the verbs when he says he puts a robe on him. Actually, the word is stole. You know, priests wear a stole. Stolane is the word for robe. Put a robe on. Put the rings and the sandals on. Okay? So the parable of the loving Father. Now, in our own lives, how well do we know the Father? How well do we know? Do we know His love despite shame? Do we know that everything He has is ours? The first son got half of the stuff. The bion, remember? The biology, the life, he got half of it. That means the other should have half of it, right? But the Father doesn't say you have half of it. The Father says, everything I have is yours. Everything. Not half of it. That's really the inheritance we have. We need to be undeterred in doing the Father's will. Sometimes we may feel unworthy. Sometimes we have pressure from outside. And God says, I still want you to witness. This past week we celebrated the feast of St. Peter Claver. And I'll finish with his witness. St. Peter Claver ministered to slaves back in the 1500s who were taken from Africa into South America. And when they come off the ship, it was such a hard sight for the eyes to see. Almost no one would go there. But he went there. And he would greet them. And he would embrace them. And he would teach them the faith. And he would celebrate Mass for them. Now, the wealthy people, they told St. Peter Claver, you celebrate this Mass for these. We won't go into your church. We won't go into your church. But he was undeterred. He was undeterred. My task is to love all as God's children. You have grave error in your judgment. So, Lord, grant us the grace to know you, Father, your unconditional love and mercy. Help us to celebrate when souls are saved, when life is returned. Help us to be undeterred in carrying out your will.